All right, so you guys are sharing the article, the Newsella article. And that was the article that had his early life and rediscovering the actual monument, right? Okay, go ahead and tell us what you would like to share.
Okay, so Hammurabi had 282 laws, and it was carved on like a finger-shaped black stone that was 7 feet tall. He ruled 4,000 years ago from 1792 to 1750 BC.
Well, when they found the pillar, it was broken into 3 pieces, and it was brought to Susa after a war victory. And it was probably during around the mid-12th century BC. One of that predated but had striking similarities to the laws outlined in the Hebrew Old Testament. Basically, these laws, they were very kind of similar in the Old Testament for Hebrews, which is interesting.
Yes, because this was before Christ, so it had been before the Bible was written.
Yes. Hammurabi's reputation remains as a pioneering lawmaker. In the words of his monument, he worked to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak and to see that justice is done to widows and orphans, which is kind of ironic because it's not true.
And when did they find the pillar that you guys are discussing?
When did they find it? It doesn't say where they found it.
It says
when.
when.
1901.
1901. So think about how old it was when they found it. Pretty crazy, right?
Yes.
And have you guys ever had an adult say to you, well, it's carved in stone, so there's no changing it. It's carved in stone, right? Well, that's kind of what Hammurabi was thinking when he put his laws onto that pillar. If it's carved in stone, nobody can change the law. And that's kind of where the saying carved in stone came from. Interesting, right?
Yes.
All right.
Hammurabi speaks about wanting the lower people to not be treated worse than the higher class. But he is also the one who separated them into 3 classes. The men who owned land, the men who didn't own land, and slaves. And he was kind of the one who treated the lower classes worse.
Right.
Not only did he punish them worse when they were punished, but he also paid slaves and non-land owners less than landowners.
So he's acting as if he cares for the oppressed, but he's actually, all of his laws make them remain oppressed. Interesting. All right. Anything else you would like to share?
No.
Very good share, guys. Good job. That was the Newsella article. Good job. All right. So first of all, tell us what article it is that you are reading.
The Code of Hammurabi.
Okay, the Code of Hammurabi. So they are going to share, this was the Common Lit article. They're going to share information from their article. Go ahead and speak up loudly, please.
Law number 110 says if a sister of God opens a tavern or enters a tavern to drink, then shall this woman be burned to death. A tavern is a bar, so if a woman was to open a bar or enter a bar to have a drink, she would be burned to death.
Okay, so women could not socialize like that. And they mentioned a woman of God. They did not have like a Christian God necessarily. They had more like sun god, rain god, that kind of stuff. Okay. Go ahead.
Law number 197 says if he breaks another man's bone, his bone shall be broken. So basically, if a man breaks another man's bone, then that man will also have his bone be broken.
Okay, so that's kind of the whole eye for an eye concept. All right.
Law number 108 says if the tavern keeper does not accept corn according to gross weight in payment of drink, but takes money, and the price of the drink is less than that of the corn, she shall be convicted and thrown into the water. So like a tavern keeper is a barkeeper. So if she charges more for the drink than it's worth, she gets thrown into the water.
Pretty much if you get caught swindling the customer, right? Especially if a lot of drinking has been going on, maybe they don't have all their wits about them. And so you could trick them. Oh, you drank 3 of these. You owe me this much in corn, right? So if you get caught, you get thrown into the water, okay?
And then law number 199, if he put out the eye of a man's slave or break the bone of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 of its value. So if a freedman breaks another freedman's slave, then he has to pay half the value of that slave.
Okay.
Law 141 is if a man's wife who lives in his house wishes to leave it, plunges into debt, tries to ruin her house, neglects her husband, and is judicially convicted. If her husband offer her release, she may go on her way. And if he gives her nothing as a gift of release, if her husband does not wish to release her, and if he takes another wife, she shall remain as a servant in her husband's house.
This is my favorite.
So,
My favorite Hammurabi law.
so this is saying that women can't leave their husband unless he says so, and if he doesn't, then she has to become a slave for him.
Yeah. So if you're in a miserable marriage, is it better to stay and be miserable, or try and leave and he doesn't release you and then you're a slave for him?
Or if the woman is like not taking care of the house or doing anything like that.
Yeah, pretty much if you're not doing what your husband says.
I would say steal all his money then run away.
Yeah.
And Law 202 says, if anyone stroke the body of a man higher in rank than he shall receive 60 blows with an ox whip in public. So this is saying, like by social ranks, if you hit someone that is higher than you get a big punishment of the ox whip in public, so you're embarrassed in front of everyone. Everyone knows what you did.
Okay.
And it's,
Public shaming.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Law 142. If a woman quarrel with her husband and say, "You are not congenial to me," the reason for her prejudice must be presented. If she is guiltless and there is no fault on her part, but he leaves and neglects her, there is no guilt attached to this woman. She shall take her dowry and go back to her father's house. So basically, if a woman said she's not happy in her marriage and she proves that her husband isn't treating her right, she can leave, but she has to go back to her father's house.
Right, and she can prove it by stating her case, so to speak, in front of a judge, like an impartial judge. So that's kind of the only law on this paper that kind of gives a woman a tad bit of a right, but she has to prove it. She has to prove it, okay?
Law 195. If a son strike his father, his hand shall be wound off. So this is basically like if his son hit him, or had a fight with his dad, then he would cut off his hand.
Yeah, you don't raise your hand to your father at all. It was like utmost disrespect. So they would cut the boy's hand off if the boy was disrespectful and raised their hand to their father. Pretty crazy laws, right? And that's just some of them. How many are there total? 280 something, right? Okay. Thank you, group 1. All right, so this group read the article that came from ReadWorks, and what was its title? The Code of Hammurabi. All right, who'd like to go first? Okay, nice and loud, Layla.
Hammurabi was the king of Mesopotamia, and he was a member of the Babylonian people. He was also a talented military leader and a governor, and he is credited for creating the first renegades.
Okay.
Hammurabi created 282 laws which dealt with aspects of everyday life. Crimes came with specific penalties, and many of them were punishable by death. So basically,
His whole concept was the eye for an eye.
yeah.
And the worse the crime, the harder the punishment.
The laws were inscribed
Inscribed.
on a stone pillar and became known as Hammurabi's Code. To ensure that everyone knew all 282 laws, they were also probably read out loud in public on a regular basis.
Yeah, so the townspeople would pretty much, or the kingdom would meet together and he would read all 282 laws out loud. So no one could say they didn't know what the laws were.
That way, no one could be excused for committing a crime because of not knowing the law. Laws in the United States function in a similar way. The United States government usually allows people full access to its laws. So the fact that you don't know that running a red light is illegal in the U.S. does not excuse you from being fined for doing so.
You could find our laws written down. They're at our fingertips. We don't have to listen to our king read them off.
One of the many differences between Hammurabi's Code and the U.S. Constitution is that the laws in Hammurabi's Code often depended on social standing. Soldiers and noblemen had certain rights that ordinary citizens and poor people did not. Still, the existence of laws prevented a future single rule from imposing this will on the populace.
Okay, so one of the reasons why he carved the laws in stone is so that they couldn't change with a future leader. Like the old saying, carved in stone, right? Anything else you guys would like to share from your article? All right, while I have the camera on, thank you guys. I'm going to take you to a picture right here of the Code of Hammurabi. I want you guys to see the pillar. So it's a little over 7 feet tall. This is what it looks like from a distance. You can't see the laws transcribed necessarily, but you can see that Hammurabi is carved at the top, okay? And then the laws are actually inscribed, carved into the pillar. This is the pillar that they found in 1901. This is what it looks like up close. So they found this in 3 pieces, and that's what the laws look like up close. Pretty cool, huh? So obviously it was built very well. Like the material that they carved it into was a stone that was a long-lasting stone, not anything like sandy that could have been weathered and stuff. And they found it, and now it is sitting in the Louvre, which is a very famous museum in Paris. Does anybody else know what else is in the Louvre? What? The Mona Lisa. That's right. So if you ever go see the Mona Lisa, check out Hammurabi's little pillar. All right, thanks guys.